Hi there, this is Dr. Rich Hum with the Center for Cross-Cultural Studies and Communication and Journalism Department at UAF. And I wanted to follow up on this morning's video about scheduling a meeting with Zoom and go on a little more detail with the settings. So I'll share my screen and just dig right into it. Okay, so like I said this morning, generally speaking, I don't mess with too many of the settings at all. I try to keep it as simple as I can. So most of them are probably going to be just used as default, but I'll go through each one and explain just a little bit of what I know about it and how I use it or why I don't use it. Okay, so host video, start meetings with host video on. That's pretty self-explanatory. That just means that when you start the meeting, your video will start playing right away. The alternative to that is that your picture will show up without a video, like your picture that's up here in this little sign out spot. That'll just show up and it'll just have audio when you start the meeting. Same thing here with participants' video, whether they come on with their video on or their video off. I usually just have it come with it on, and that just means that I'm aware that the camera's on as soon as I start the conference. And that's something you should always be aware of anyways, so it's just good practice. Audio type, my students sometimes join by phone, so I use telephone and computer audio. So I just leave it at that. You can make that choice though. I don't allow my students to join before I'm on there. You could if you wanted. I don't like that. I like to get the meeting started and then have them join. The negative to that is that if I'm a little late starting the meeting, it's as if the classroom door is locked and they can't get in, and some students won't check back in a few minutes. So think about this join before host, as being like, is your classroom door open or closed before you get to class? So the next thing down there is the personal meeting. When scheduling, I always just leave these alone. I don't use that personal meeting thing much normally anyway, so it's not something I have a lot of experience with. I never have the users authenticate before joining meetings. If you're in a situation where privacy is more of a concern maybe than I think of it anyways, then maybe you would use this. It just allows another level of security, I guess. Same with requiring a password. I usually leave those off. It's up to you. Has to do with access and who can get into the meetings and what they can do. This one though, embed the password in the meeting link. I definitely turn that on so that when I send out the link to my meetings for my students, they don't have to know a password. They just click the link and they're in there. And I prefer that. My whole goal with this kind of distance education stuff is to make it as easy as possible for the students. So if they only have to click once, that's far better than them having to click once, remember a password, dig out the email that has the password, etc. And if I'm going to put the link in there, link and the password in the same email anyways, I just feel it's better to let the computer do it for me. Okay, let's see. Mute participants by entry. So same thing here, or not, same thing here as the video. And there's just some etiquette involved in this. And it's probably best to mute participants as they come on so that if they join a little bit late into your class, they don't, and they're in a loud environment, they don't wake everybody up. Hopefully their students aren't asleep. But it's late in the day and I might be getting a little tired. So that they don't disturb the class when they come in. So mute them when they come in. I usually set that setting. Upcoming meeting reminder, I don't do that. If you want, a little reminder to pop up on your desktop, that's what that would do. That drives me nuts, so I leave that off. Okay, so the endpoints for H323 and SIP, I never worry about that. Most faculty probably don't need to worry about that. I do like my students to be able to chat with me or with other students. I don't care if they save the chats. I think some faculty might, and so if that's the case, you just click that, and then students won't be able to save chats. Doesn't matter to me, so I leave it alone. I would like students to be able to have side conversations, so I allow students to have private chats. Automatically save all in-meeting chats so that the host does not need to manually do. I like the chat save. There's really great conversations that go on. This isn't about classroom management for me or anything like that. It's just about preserving the information that gets discussed in class so that we can all learn from it. Play sounds when participants join or leave. I'm not always the most observant person, so having that little auditory sound lets me know if people come in and out. And that's important sometimes because it might mean that people are having connectivity issues and they're having to come in and out, and I might want to just check in on that and see if they are. Okay, so file transfer, yes, I would like us to be able to exchange documents in Zoom through the chat. Never really do that, but I would like the option in case it comes up, so I always check that on. Feedback to Zoom, I leave that. I feel like it's helpful for Zoom. They actually are trying to make a good product, so if it sends feedback to them, then they can helpfully improve the things that are causing me problems as an instructor. Same with this display at end of the meeting experience. If you don't want your students or yourself to deal with all those little survey pop-up things, then just check those off. Polling, I also don't use this feature very often, but it allows you to sort of quickly take stock of where your students are if you ask questions to the whole audience, to the whole class. So I leave that one on. And that's just something that'll pop up in the chats, and it allows you to, like a poll. Also show the meeting control toolbar. Why would I not want to see that? I guess it could clutter your window. It never bothers me, so I just like to see that toolbar so I can have access to my tools. Show Zoom windows during screen share. I leave that off. It can get this like hall of mirrors effect if everybody's seeing everybody, so I kind of leave that off. I like my students to be able to share their screen as much as I share my screen in case they want to show me something that they found. So I let my participants share their screens also. And then the next couple of preferences are just kind of about control for that. And so I usually only allow myself or a co-host to interrupt somebody's screen sharing. I don't know why I do that, but it just gives me a little bit more control as an instructor, I guess, so I do. Probably don't need to. Disable desktop screen share for others. I just, I want them to be able to screen share. Annotations, whiteboard, that's for being able to take notes on things that are being shared and using the whiteboard. I always turn those on, but I've never used them, so I don't have a lot of experience. I just leave them on because they provide some options. And if I get to somewhere where I think I might want to use a whiteboard, to write some live notes or something, I would just click the link that I'll share with this video in the blog post and research it. But I just leave it on. I don't use it too much. Remote control. During screen sharing, the person who's sharing can allow others to control the shared content. That's like if I'm sharing my screen with you and I want you to be able to scroll up and point something out to me, I would want you to be able to do that, so I allow it. I guess the issue here, and the issue here, I guess, is just classroom management. And if I had a bunch of middle school students, I might not leave this open because I'd be worried they'd start messing with me and moving my screen around. In college, at the college level, I don't worry about that, and so I would prefer to give them that that option. Non-verbal feedback, that just gives emojicons for quick kind of feedback from the student to you. That's nice. You kind of want to give the students as many opportunities to give you feedback as you can. If you think about this as replacing a classroom experience, as teachers, when we're looking out over our classrooms or walking around in small groups, we're constantly watching nonverbals. And so when we narrow this down to video conferencing, we lose some of that nonverbal interaction. And so any tool that the software provides for me to try to replicate that, I try to use. Okay, remove participants to rejoin. Probably you don't want that to happen, actually. I don't know why that was on there. So if for some reason I have a classroom management issue and I have to remove a student, or maybe it's not a classroom management issue, but maybe they cannot get their mic muted and they have a lot of sound and it's interrupting everything. I want to be able to remove them and not have them come back in. So I would not allow them to rejoin, I guess. That may cause problems if there's some sort of technical issue that gets resolved and then you want them back in. But generally, I don't know. I think it could go either way with that box. Okay, let's see. So breakout rooms, yes, I don't use this, but this allows you to make smaller little video conferences so that, you can have small groups, 2 or 3 students can go work on something, 2 or 3 other students can go work on another. My classes are usually small, they're mostly graduate students, so we are all one breakout room essentially. But if you have a larger classroom, this would be a really important tool. This remote support, I don't know much about closed captioning. I've not had the need for that, but if you have students that that would be important for, you would obviously open that up. And then save the captions. If I had closed captioning, I would definitely save the captions for the same reason that I saved the chats above. Virtual background, that's really fun. It means you can change your background and put pictures back there. Doesn't exactly fall into the keep it simple category of things, but it is fun. It keeps students a little more engaged. So I leave it on, usually forget to use it, but occasionally I do use it. Auto answer group and chat. I don't know what that is really, and I never use it. And then also for the Outlook plugin, I don't use Outlook, so I've never messed with that. Probably none of us at UAF are using Outlook. So these next couple of here, I don't ever open. And certainly this attention tracking one down here, that's a classroom management issue. And if you want to be able to, here's my bias, micromanage your students and be aware of how much they're paying attention to the screens you're on and that kind of stuff, then you would want to leave that on. At the levels of students that I'm working with, upper division graduate students, I don't do that. I wouldn't do that with lower division either, though, to be honest. The waiting room, I discussed in the other video. I do like to have a waiting room. I like to let them in and out so that if I'm having a one-on-one discussion, mainly if I'm doing things like office hours, but I usually just check it anyways. If I'm having a one-on-one discussion, I can make sure that it doesn't get interrupted and private information doesn't get shared around. Let's see, almost done with these ones. Allow live streaming of meetings. I don't live stream my meetings. It might be that you would want to, and then this is just gives you that option once you start the conference to live stream it through these platforms. Probably a good idea if you have really large classes and not everybody, yeah. Or say if Zoom, well, yeah, I don't know. Probably a good idea. I've not used it, so I guess it hasn't fit for my teaching style just yet. Email notifications. Mostly I don't like to get a lot of emails, although if I do have students join a meeting before I'm there, I'd like to get that email, and that's just because I'm flaky with scheduling, and so sometimes that's just an extra little reminder that helps me. But that's a preference all on your part, whether you want extra emails. Okay, I think that's about it for the in-meeting ones. The telephone settings, I just go by default. I've never had to change anything. I have very few students join by telephone, but I just leave the defaults alone there. Recording settings, I also generally leave all these alone. The only thing is I do allow this local recording so that I can record straight onto my computer for doing things like this, for this kind of conference where I'm not really meeting with people, but I'm just using it as a video recorder, really. I want it to go straight onto my computer because if I let Zoom do it, you can cloud record it. If I do that, it takes a little while to process. And I've tried to start processing a couple today, and they're taking forever. So I don't know if there's just maybe a little higher demand on that right now as well. So allow local recording lets me record it straight onto my computer. Okay, so that's all of the settings, I think. And so I'll close this one off here. And I think probably the next one I'll do would be a little bit on video conference etiquette, so we can talk about things like background distractions. Thanks a lot for joining.